All right, lovely to have you here. Hello, everyone. Just finished telling a by thistle, by thimble story called What's So, which honestly I have not thought about for years and years and years. Written and told probably 8 to 9 years ago. And I don't know that I've listened to it since then. But it came to my attention. I believe it was recommended, and then I listened to it and thought, oh my, this is the story, not just for, I mean, it lines up beautifully with a series of courses that Meredith and I are teaching around being a superhero, and this four-step process of paying attention, of believing in how you feel, of overcoming nervousness and doing something brave, and then getting out of the way of the service. That it's not about you, it's not about celebrating you, it's about doing the service because the service is good, doing it because it needs to be done, because there is a need. And this demonstrates it beautifully. With this squire who's a good person who wants to genuinely do well, but is operating out of how he wants things to be rather than how things are. And because things were not meeting his expectations. Now that's key. In certain circles, expectations are considered, you know, disappointments and resentments in advance. You're setting things up so that later on you can be disappointed and resentful and frustrated and all of these things, expectations. So setting up expectations for yourself and for others, it's different than intentions, but expectations, it needs to look this way. And almost always things don't look this way. And then we have just disappointment and resignation. Well, I don't want to be a knight anymore. And so our poor Sir Ainsley, head hanging low, didn't give it much time before he realized, I don't want to be this, not really thinking that there were other options, and that his master story, that weaving narrative that got him to this point, actually had everything he needed in place. He just couldn't see that golden thread. And that was the gift that Sir Soplacate gave him, was this final little piece of context that actually the kind of knight you want to be is this, because he's trained in it and has experience in that, and then learns the key fact of seeing what is so, what is before you, paying attention, being present and paying attention. So that's the content. I did notice tonight with tonight's story, and I don't know if there's anyone that wants to talk about how the story was told. We have these different parts of our body that we talk about in storytelling. I talk about the rock part of our body, the physical part. And when you tell a story to the rock part of our body, it's very slow, it's very steady. The gestures are all very intentional. I speak softly, I saturate my words. That's rock. Plant has got more life in it. I'm choosing which words I say more consciously so that they can have living images, and it grows, the story grows. Animal is where it gets interesting, and the storyteller can be a little bit more performative, add a little bit more voices, a little bit more facial expressions, some more gestures. And I noticed tonight that I was leaning a little bit more than I normally do into the animal. And I think it's because this story is generally for older kids, and it has all these themes of superhero-ness in them. I think I got a little excited, but if you've been coming to these, you'll notice that the tone was a little bit different, and I'd be curious what people saw. So, questions? Anything that you would like teased out a little bit more about process, about content? Something that you want to say about the story or say about the process in general? Great. Such a reminder that there is value in just doing what must be done without needing the notoriety that sometimes goes with it. Yes, and that is from a friend that knows this superhero program. That's step 4 of Be Anonymous, or in other circles, the storying, it's allowance. Get out of the way.
Let the service do the get the attention, not the server. I'd love to hear if there's any way in which Meredith and I can better serve you. So if there's things that you would like to learn about in these parent time, if you want specific storytelling techniques or tutorials, or how to create your own stories, or any of these things, we want to be of service every night for a little bit, a few minutes. Love to hear from you. I think my teens can really sit deeply with the idea that just because something isn't working out, it's okay to reframe the idea without giving up on it. Yes, today in our superhero course, we talked about mistakes and how important mistakes are, and really they're key. You don't want to avoid them. You want to throw yourself fully into the mistakes. And in our adult course, we have this long list of quotes about these experts who, and all the mistakes that they made before they became experts, and because of the mistakes they made, they gained so much information and wisdom and intelligence and experience that they became experts. It reinforces thinking of others and what others may need, even the most simple, basic of needs. In fact, more often than not, that is what people need, is simple and basic needs. We want the grandeur of saving people's lives, when in fact you can save their life one little moment at a time by shoveling the driveway. That's actually pretty big. Shoveling the sidewalk, bringing over a cup of soup, whatever you have. Nowadays, it's a little trickier because a lot of us are shelter in home. So how do you do service and help others? There's still ways. If you pay attention, you will see opportunities. Hi, always noticed that you do a lot of voice acting, but I was surprised how your facial expressions and physical acting adds up so much to the story. Can you please elaborate on that? Yeah, it's kind of like what we were talking about yesterday with really inhabiting the story. I think because there was so much action and drama in it, that is different than the Sleepy Time stories or even the fairy stories. This one had a lot going on, fighting and tension and disappointment, and things happened. And so I got myself into a little bit more of that animal space, which is where there's the facial expressions, different in the tonality. You can tell, so telling a story to the rock plant, which is our sweet spot for transformative storytelling, would be more like, and as he was stating his motto that he had practiced for so long, he couldn't finish it because suddenly he was on the ground. So slow, steady, saturated, as opposed to the way I told it, which was, moving this way and that and falling over. And still, there's a lot more that I could have done, and a lot of storytellers, in my opinion, do too much of that, and they're very grand and they do big voices, and it can be a little distracting. So you want to find that sweet spot where you're not the center of attention, the content and the wisdom is. Can you give more info about your adult courses? So the adult courses really are kind of wrapped up into a membership. So we have a membership system, and you have access to all the courses. New courses we are selling, but we've even wrapped the most recent superhero course for adults into the membership. So members get access to all the courses. There's various storytelling courses, and then this superhero course, Listen Like a Storyteller, based on my book, Listen Like a Storyteller, and then lots of tutorials that are timely. Every other week there's a new tutorial. The one for today was all about using Storyteller to basically create calm and serenity in your listeners, whether they're children or adults, or you're at work or what have you. Little tricks, little spell casting tricks that you can do. It's $12 a month, access to everything, and also access to me and Meredith. Something I really appreciate about these times is hearing your motivation for choosing the story and getting the backstage rundown, so to speak. It often gives me, oops, too much.
an opportunity to think of the story in a new way, which adds a layer for me in holding space for the story when my child listens to it. That was the idea. So you can see inside baseball with what's going on in these stories, and we can unpack them. And it can not only help you in when you serve up the story to your child, but in your own storytelling. You can see the techniques that and process that went into these stories. Yes, I love hearing about the thinking behind the story choices. I was very surprised that the family that had been stolen from didn't want help from Thomas after being robbed by the big strong knight. I suppose the lesson there might be you can only help those who want help. Why do you think that family didn't want help from Thomas? Too suspicious after the big bad knight? I would say that that is a valid point on if all the knights behave like that, well, why would they want to serve another one? And quietly, what were his motivations? Did he really want to help them? Or did he want glory? Did he want them celebrating him? These sorts of ways of doing acts of service so that you can be congratulated and celebrated, hopefully publicly, people can tell. It vibrates out. You can feel from someone if they are doing it for attention or if they're doing it because the work is good and needs to be done. And I think that that can often play in there. All right. Oh, have you thought of translating your stories into other languages? We have some friends in Italy that would love to hear all your stories. Yes, I'd love to tell them in Italian. This is something that we have been working on steadily for years: Spanish, French, and Italian and German. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer where they can be translated and have proper telling. As I was saying, it's a sweet spot the way that these stories are told. They're told in a very particular way. So we need to be able to train storytellers to tell them this way rather than the more entertaining standard way that a lot of storytellers do. We just haven't had the time yet, but we'll get there, I promise. Okay, all. Great questions. Thank you for this. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and bring your questions. You can ask about anything. I love this. This is helpful for me as well. So have a good night, and I will look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.